Rain streaked the windows of Denver International Airport, each droplet blurring the reflection of anxious travelers hurrying through Gate 24. The storm outside was relentless, dark clouds stacked over the Rockies like black mountains of smoke. But inside, Flight 227 to Seattle was boarding as usual. Passengers scrolled through phones, secured overhead bags, and settled in for what should have been a routine 2-hour flight. Captain Daniel Reeves, a veteran pilot with silver hair and calm blue eyes, greeted passengers with his usual charm. "Rough weather over Idaho," he told the flight attendants, "but nothing this old bird can't handle." He smiled reassuringly, though his hand briefly pressed against his chest as if steadying a pulse he didn't trust. At 7:42 p.m., Flight 227 lifted off into the storm. Lightning flickered beyond the windows. The aircraft trembled but climbed steadily toward cruising altitude. The signs flickered off. A toddler clapped. A businessman ordered whiskey. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft golden glow. For 20 quiet minutes it was an ordinary flight. Then turbulence hit. It started with a low rumble like distant thunder crawling up through the fuselage. The plane dipped, shuddered, then jolted hard enough to send drinks flying. Gasps rippled down the aisle. "On!" a flight attendant shouted, gripping the overhead bin for balance. The lights flickered. Inside the cockpit, Captain Reeves frowned. "That's not just turbulence," he muttered. Instruments flickered, altimeter, compass, radar all glitching. He reached for the controls, but his hand froze midair. A sharp pain shot through his chest. His vision tunneled. "Captain," the co-pilot, a young man named Briggs, leaned forward. "Sir, are you?" Reeves collapsed. His head struck the panel. The plane lurched violently downward. Briggs panicked, grabbing the yoke, shouting into the radio. "Mayday, mayday. This is Flight 227, Captain incapacitated. Repeat, pilot down." Static filled the headset. The plane was dropping fast, 15,000 feet, 14, 13. Oxygen masks fell from the ceiling. The cabin erupted in screams. Pull up, come on, come on." Briggs fought the controls, sweat running down his temples. The alarms wailed. Then, through the haze of panic and flashing red lights, he heard it. A knock. Someone was at the cockpit door. "Not now," Briggs shouted. The door clicked open anyway. A gust of cold air blew in, impossible at 25,000 feet. Standing there, framed by the flickering emergency light, was a woman in a flight suit. Her hair was soaked, dripping onto the carpet. Her expression was calm, eyes focused like steel. "Move," she said quietly. Briggs froze. "Ma'am, you can't." "I said move." There was something in her tone, command, authority, and something else. Familiarity. Briggs slid aside instinctively. The woman stepped forward, sat in the pilot's seat, and scanned the panel. Her hands moved with practiced confidence. Autopilot disengaged. Left engine stable, adjusting pitch 3 degrees. The alarms quieted, the aircraft steadied. Briggs stared. Who are you?" She didn't answer right away. She reached for the comm switch, her voice level as she spoke into the headset. "Seattle Center, this is Flight 227. Situation under control. Captain Reeves requires medical attention." A pause. Then, through the crackling frequency, came the reply. "Flight 227, confirmed pilot in command." The woman hesitated, then said, "Lieutenant Emma Cross, U.S. Air Force." Briggs blinked. "Wait, did you say?" He glanced at her uniform, catching the nameplate under her collar. "Emma Cross." His breath caught. "That can't be," he whispered. You're dead." She looked at him for the first time, calm, almost sorrowful. "Not dead," she said quietly, "just forgotten." Outside the cockpit window, lightning tore across the sky, illuminating her face for a split second. Briggs saw it then. The exhaustion, the scars near her temple, the haunted look of someone who'd lived too long in places no one was supposed to return from. The plane leveled at 25,000 feet, slicing through the last of the storm. Passengers began to breathe again, unaware of the impossible truth in the cockpit, that the woman flying their plane had been declared dead 7 years ago. And as the clouds broke, Emma stared out into the night, her jaw tight, eyes fixed on the horizon ahead. Because she knew this storm wasn't over. This was only the beginning. For the first time in 30,000 feet of chaos, silence filled the cockpit. The alarms were gone, the lightning fatting behind them. Only the steady hum of the engines remained. Briggs stared at the woman beside him, drenched, ghost-pale, yet calm as if she'd been there all along. His headset crackled. Flight 227, confirm pilot identification. Repeat, who is controlling that aircraft? Emma's hands never stopped moving across the panel. Reeves is down but breathing. Cabin secure. Request priority descent into Seattle. Her voice carried the authority of someone used to command, the kind that made people listen before they understood why. Briggs hesitated. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Lieutenant Cross. Emma finally turned to him. The look in her eyes wasn't anger. It was weariness, the kind that came from years of running. You remember the name, she said softly. I remember the news, he breathed. Your crash, they said your jet disintegrated near the Pacific Range. They found. Pieces, she interrupted, eyes returning to the horizon. They found what they were meant to find. Briggs felt his throat go dry. Ma'am, this doesn't make sense. How did you even? Focus on your job, first officer, she cut him off sharply. Run a systems check. Report cabin pressure. Her tone was crisp, professional, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly on the throttle. He noticed it, the faint tremor she was fighting to hide. Cabin pressure stable, he said quietly. Passengers shaken but alive. You just saved 200 people. Emma gave a half smile, thin and bitter. Not the first time I've pulled something out of the sky. Outside, the clouds thinned, revealing a streak of moonlight over the mountains. The turbulence calmed, but the weight in the air grew heavier. Briggs wanted to ask 100 questions. Where had she been? How was she standing here? Why was her uniform slightly different from any Air Force cut he'd seen? But before he could speak again, the radio hissed back to life. Flight 227, this is Seattle Center. We've received no confirmation on pilot identification. Say again, who's in command? Emma hesitated only a second. Lieutenant Emma Cross, United States Air Force, call sign Phoenix 1. There was silence on the frequency, the kind that carried fear inside it. Then, please repeat. Phoenix 1, she said, her voice steady. I'm taking control until further notice. Briggs watched the color drain from his screen. The channel went dead. He swallowed. They cut us off. They're verifying, Emma murmured, or deciding what to do next. Deciding what to do, Briggs repeated. You just saved this flight. They should be thanking you. Emma gave a small, humorless laugh. You think saving people matters to the people who buried me? Her eyes flicked toward the co-pilot, sharp and haunted. There are men in D.C. who made sure my file ended in a coffin. They'll want to know how a ghost just made radio contact over Idaho airspace. Briggs didn't know what to say. The woman beside him wasn't just a miracle survivor. She was a secret, one that could make entire branches of government panic. From the cabin intercom, a trembling voice came through. Cockpit, this is Flight Attendant Julia. Passengers are terrified. What do I tell them? Emma took the mic. Tell them the storm over and that their pilot's in good hands. Her voice was calm, reassuring, almost maternal. Julia exhaled audibly. Thank you, ma'am. When the line clicked off, Briggs leaned closer. You sound like you've done this before. Emma's gaze softened. Once, long ago, before the ocean took me. He hesitated. Then why come back now? She didn't answer. Instead, she stared out the windshield where the night sky shimmered faintly, a faint green ripple, like aurora light bending where it shouldn't. Briggs frowned. What's that? Something that shouldn't be here, Emma said quietly. And if it's showing up again, then someone turned it back on. Turned what back on? Emma's jaw tightened. Project Haven. Lightning flashed again, distant now but sharp enough to illuminate her face. She looked less like a rescuer and more like someone climbing out of a grave she was never meant to leave. Below them, the sleeping towns of Idaho passed in darkness, unaware that history, or perhaps something worse, had just taken flight again. Briggs glanced at her name badge once more, disbelief in every breath. Emma Cross. Missing, presumed dead, 7 years. And now alive, flying straight into a storm no one else could see. 7 years earlier, the world had watched a bright white contrail vanish into the Pacific dusk. It was March 4th, 2018, the final test flight of the U.S. Air Force's most secret experimental aircraft, Project Haven. Emma Cross was 28, one of the youngest test pilots in U.S. history. She was confident, relentless, and born for the cockpit. Her colleagues called her the Phoenix, not because she feared death, but because she never stayed down. That morning, she'd kissed Captain Daniel Reeves goodbye in the hangar at Edwards Air Force Base. He was her then, a senior instructor, steady and protective. "You'll be home by dinner," he'd told her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Unless I break Mach 3, she teased. "Then I'm grounding you personally." He laughed, but his eyes lingered a little too long. Something in him always feared the things he couldn't control, especially the Air Force's darker projects. Project Haven wasn't an ordinary program. It was designed for one purpose: to create an aircraft invisible to detection, not just radar, but every spectrum of human and digital tracking. The mission brief called it total absence signature. In other words, when activated, the aircraft would simply vanish. At 9:47 a.m., Emma's voice echoed over the radio. "Tower, this is Phoenix 1. Systems green, requesting permission for takeoff." Phoenix 1 cleared for takeoff. "Godspeed, Lieutenant." She smiled, easing the throttle forward. The experimental jet, sleek, knife-shaped and painted obsidian black, roared across the runway and soared into a blue that promised history. Everything went perfectly for 20 minutes. She reached 80,000 feet, higher than most fighters could even dream. "Engine stable," she reported. "Crosswind minimal. Initiating Haven drive test." That was the moment everything changed. The screens inside her cockpit flickered. A pulse of static rolled through her headset, followed by silence. The horizon blurred, light bending around the nose of her jet. "Control, I'm getting interference," she said. "Telemetry distortion at." Then her voice cut off. From the ground, radar operators saw the jet shimmer, then vanish. No explosion, no debris trail. 1 second it was there, the next gone. The following week, a recovery team found fragments of blackened fuselage near the California coastline, enough to declare her dead. The Air Force sealed every record under national security. But Daniel Reeves never accepted it. He spent months combing for answers, sending request after request to Pentagon channels. Every report came back redacted. The only thing consistent was a phrase stamped in red ink: "Unauthorized disclosure of Project Haven constitutes federal offense." One night, while going through Emma's locker at Edwards, Reeves found something hidden behind a loose panel, a flash drive. The files were corrupted, but a single phrase repeated across dozens of documents: Phase 2 initiation pending. He brought it to his superior, Colonel Ward. The older man's face turned pale when he saw it. "Where did you get this?" Ward demanded. "Emma's personal effects," Reeves said. Ward snatched the drive from his hand. "You didn't see this. For your own sake, forget she ever existed." When Reeves reported it missing the next day, Ward claimed there was no record of the item or of the conversation. From that moment on, Reeves was quietly reassigned, cut out of briefings and treated like a liability. But he never stopped looking. In the years that followed, rumors surfaced among pilots, whispers of a ghost transmission, occasionally picked up over the Pacific. A female voice repeating, Phoenix 1 requesting return vector. Every time, the frequency vanished before triangulation. And now, 7 years later, that same voice had spoken again, not from the ocean, but from 30,000 feet above Idaho, on a commercial jet carrying 200 civilians. Emma Cross had come back from wherever Project Haven had sent her. But the question that haunted the co-pilot, and anyone who would later read the classified report, was simple. Had she truly survived the experiment, or had the experiment never ended? The cabin of Flight 227 had gone eerily quiet. Passengers whispered prayers, too stunned to realize the plane had stabilized. In the cockpit, only the steady tick of the altimeter filled the air. Emma kept her gaze on the horizon, every movement precise. Beside her, Briggs exhaled shakily. "We're level," he muttered. "How did you do that?" She didn't answer. Her eyes flicked to a switch he'd never seen before, one she must have wired herself. It was small, improvised, marked with a faded label, H-Drive Manual. She touched it once, almost protectively, then looked away. The headset crackled. "Phoenix 1, this is Control Alpha." Emma froze, that voice. Cold, measured, familiar, her pulse thudded in her ears. "Repeat," she said slowly. "Identify." "Colonel Ward," came the reply. "Lieutenant Cross, you're operating on a restricted frequency." Briggs blinked. "Colonel Ward, he's the guy from your accident report, right?" Emma's hands tightened on the yoke. "Cut the external feed," she whispered. He hesitated, then flipped the switch. The cockpit filled with static. "7 years, sir," she said into the open channel. 7 years since you left me in the dark." Ward's tone didn't change. "You were not authorized to return, Lieutenant. The protocol was clear." "Protocol?" Her voice cracked for the first time. "You detonated my aircraft mid-test. I saw the fail-safe charges arm before the blackout. You tried to erase me." "Containment was necessary," he replied. "The Haven drive behaved unpredictably. You know what that means." Briggs whispered, "What drive? What's he talking about?" Emma ignored him. "You're still running it, aren't you? Haven wasn't canceled." "Of course it was." A pause, then more quietly. "And now you've compromised it. There are 200 civilians on that aircraft, Lieutenant. You will divert immediately to runway 9 at Tacoma Field. Our teams will handle the situation." Emma's knuckles whitened. "Your teams or your cleanup crew?" Ward's voice hardened. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You don't belong up there anymore." She muted the channel. For a moment there was only the hiss of the engines. Then she whispered, "He's lying." Briggs swallowed. "Ma'am, he sounds official. Maybe we should land where they tell us." She turned to him, eyes blazing. "If we do that, no one on this plane will ever be heard from again. Haven isn't a program. It's a burial ground for people who learn too much." Lightning flared outside, illuminating her face in a flash of white. Briggs had the strange sense she wasn't just a pilot now. She was evidence. "Set the heading for Seattle International," she ordered. "I'll explain later." He obeyed, though every instinct screamed against it. The radio came alive again, Ward's tone sharper. "Lieutenant Cross, respond. If you don't comply, interceptors will be launched." Emma smirked faintly. "Already launched, sir. I can feel them." Briggs looked out the window and his stomach dropped. 2 small shadows streaked beneath the clouds, lights glinting off their wings. F-16s, American jets. "They're not going to fire on a civilian plane," he said hopefully. "Not unless they think the pilot's an enemy," she replied. "And according to their files, I am." "Then what's the plan?" "Stay unpredictable." She flipped 3 switches, darkening the plane's transponder. "We just disappeared from radar." Alarms blinked. Briggs's breath hitched. "You turned off our beacon. ATC will lose us." "Exactly," she said. "If Ward can't find me, he can't silence me." Outside, the sky deepened to black. The fighter jet slowed, circling uncertainly as Flight 227 slipped into storm clouds again, swallowed by lightning and rain. Ward's voice hissed one last time through static. "Emma, you have no idea what you've brought back with you." Then the line died. Briggs stared at her, terrified. "Brought back, what does he mean?" Emma's expression hardened. "It means Haven never stopped running, and whatever it pulled into my jet 7 years ago might still be inside me." Thunder cracked so loud it shook the cabin. The temperature dropped, frost blooming on the inside of the windshield. For the briefest moment, Briggs swore he saw light, green, shifting, alive, flicker beneath her skin. Emma didn't flinch. "Hold course," she said. "We're not landing until everyone knows the truth." 8:47 p.m., a senior controller at Seattle International frowned at his radar screen. Flight 227's blip vanished midair. No transponder, no radio contact, nothing. He adjusted the filters, thinking it was a glitch, but the space where the plane should been stayed empty. "Lost comms?" his assistant asked. "Not comms," he muttered. "It's gone." Within minutes, the control tower was a hive of voices, alarms, and flashing monitors. Pilots of nearby flights began calling in strange reports, unexplained turbulence, a cold electrical static in the air, lights forming arcs across the cloud tops. Something was happening in the storm. By 8:52, NORAD received word. Flight 227 has gone dark. At Joint Base Lewis Cord, Colonel Ward stood in a reinforced operations room, eyes fixed on a massive wall screen showing flight paths over Washington state. "Lock the civilian feeds," he ordered. "We do not need the public watching this." "Sir," an intelligence tech said cautiously, "media scanners already picked up chatter. A Seattle air blogger posted a clip saying ghost flight over the sound. It's spreading." Ward slammed his palm against the console. "Scrub it, all of it." But deep down, he knew it was too late. The world would soon learn what the government buried 7 years ago, what Project Haven had created before they lost control of it. Meanwhile, above the blackened Pacific sky, Flight 227 surged forward through lightning like a glowing spear. Emma kept her focus on the instruments, her hands steady. Briggs sat beside her, trembling, half in awe, half in fear. "I can't believe this," he murmured. "They're calling you a ghost pilot down there, the one who vanished with Haven." Emma gave a faint, humorless smile. "Good, let them think I'm a ghost. Ghosts don't follow orders." Briggs studied her. "Whatever Haven is, you think it's still inside you." She hesitated, her eyes flicking toward the faint green shimmer under her wrist. "Not inside," she said finally. "Connected. Haven wasn't just a power source, it was a neural interface. They said it could bond human instinct with aircraft intelligence. They didn't tell me it could think back." "So that's why Ward's scared," Briggs whispered. "You're the only one who ever flew it and lived." The cockpit lights flickered. Emma blinked hard, fighting a wave of dizziness. For a second, her vision warped. The clouds outside pulsed like they were breathing. Then a faint voice whispered in her ear, not through the headset, but inside her mind. "Phoenix, they'll come for you. Don't let them land you." Emma stiffened. Briggs noticed. "What is it?" She shook her head. "We have to warn Seattle. Haven's energy field could destabilize their airspace systems if we get too close. I need the secure line." She flipped open the emergency comm panel, patched directly to the FAA's emergency frequency. "This is Phoenix, Flight 227. Do not intercept. I repeat, do not intercept. We're under government containment, classified level red." There was a pause, then a startled voice. "Did you say Phoenix, Lieutenant Cross?" She took a breath. "Yes, I need to speak with Director Hayes." On the other end, silence. Then softly, "Emma, is it really you?" Briggs blinked. "Who's that?" "Hayes," Emma said. "He led the investigation when they declared me dead." "Emma, listen to me," Hayes said through the static. Ward's mobilized retrieval teams. He'll shoot you down if you get within 10 miles of a city. He says Haven's unstable. It's not unstable, she replied sharply. It's awake. Down below in the control tower, Hayes watched as 2 new radar signatures appeared behind Flight 227. Emma, he said urgently, you've got 2 interceptors closing fast, real ones this time. Emma's eyes flashed. He sent his hounds. Fine, let's see if they remember who taught them to fly. She pulled back the throttle and the passenger jet, built for comfort, not combat, answered with impossible grace. The cabin rattled, passengers screamed, and Briggs grabbed the seat to steady himself. Are you crazy? He shouted. Not crazy, she said through clenched teeth. Prepared. Below the dashboard, she flipped open a hidden panel, a compartment she'd modified hours before the flight ever departed. Inside, faint coils pulsed with green energy. Haven, still linked to me, she whispered. Let's use that. The air around the plane shimmered. Lightning forked sideways, not toward them, but around them, forming a glowing shield. The fighter jets on radar blinked, losing their lock. Ward's command room erupted with confusion. She's activating the Haven field. That's impossible without a core. Ward's face went pale. Then she brought it back. By 9:07 p.m., every major news channel in America was broadcasting one thing, an emergency alert. Unidentified civilian flight pursued by U.S. military aircraft over Washington state. Cell phones filmed streaks of light flashing between clouds, and witnesses reported thunder that sounded like a roar of engines. To the world, it looked like a hijacking. To those who knew Emma Cross, it looked like a ghost coming back for justice. At Joint Base Lewis Cord, Colonel Ward paced in front of his command console, veins pulsing. Scramble communications blackout now. I want that plane invisible in every feed. An analyst hesitated. Sir, there's a problem. Someone's broadcasting from the aircraft itself. What do you mean broadcasting? The analyst turned the monitor. On every major network, a shaky video feed played from inside the cockpit of Flight 227. Emma's face filled the frame, calm, controlled, and undeniably alive. This is Lieutenant Emma Cross, U.S. Air Force Test Division. 7 years ago, they told you I died testing something called Project Haven. That was a lie. It was never just a weapon, it was a consciousness experiment. I survived it. And now they want me gone because I'm proof it worked. Ward's hand slammed on the desk. Cut her off now. Technicians scrambled, but the feed had already duplicated across multiple civilian relays. There was no stopping it. Meanwhile, inside the cockpit, Emma steadied the camera with one hand, the other on the controls. Briggs whispered urgently, "They're going to track that feed straight to us." "I want them to," she said. "If the world's watching, they can't just erase me again." Outside, the storm intensified, lightning webbing across the clouds like veins of living fire. The 2 fighter jets trailing behind edged closer, maintaining distance but ready to fire. A transmission came through the emergency band. Flight 227, this is Eagle 4. You are ordered to descend immediately. Failure to comply will be considered hostile. Emma closed her eyes, exhaling. "Eagle 4, she said softly. "Is that you, Mason?" The pilot's voice wavered. "Ma'am, Lieutenant Cross, that's impossible." "Not impossible," she replied. "Just inconvenient for people like Ward." There was silence. Then hesitantly, "Ma'am, I don't want to do this." "I know," she said. "You won't have to." Ward's voice cut through the channel like a blade. "Eagle 4, that is an order. Neutralize the target before it reaches Seattle airspace." "Sir, there are civilians aboard." "Do it." Emma watched the F-16 veer slightly, preparing to fire. Her pupils glowed faintly green. She whispered, "Haven now." A wave of emerald light rippled across the sky, swallowing both jets in a curtain of electromagnetic distortion. Their systems glitched, targeting displays flickering. Alarms screamed inside their cockpits. Then, both fighters broke formation, veering sharply upward, controlled by something other than human reflex. Down below, radar screens in NORAD rooms lit up like Christmas trees, signatures splitting and reforming faster than anyone could process. Ward gritted his teeth. She's sinking the Haven field with atmospheric current. She's turning the storm into a conductor. Emma's breathing quickened. We can't keep this up, Briggs said. The engines weren't built for this kind of charge. She nodded. I know, but we're not escaping, we're exposing them. What does that mean? It means we take Haven where it started. She input a sequence into the panel, a set of coordinates Briggs didn't recognize. That's not Seattle, he said. No, she replied. That's research facility, it's where I died. The plane lurched as she redirected course. Below them, mountains loomed in the dark, shadowed outlines of the Cascade Range. The radio crackled again, Hayes's voice urgent and raw. Emma, don't go back there. Ward's got the place sealed. It's armed to detonate if you approach. Emma smiled faintly. Then let's hope they remember who built their system. Lightning split the clouds, and the jet rocketed forward, cutting through turbulence as if the storm itself obeyed her. Back at base, Ward stared at the satellite feed, his face ashen. She's going to, he whispered. His aide hesitated. Should we intercept? Ward looked at the glowing radar signature moving impossibly fast, almost alive. No, at this point, she's beyond interception. As the screen pulsed with green static, Ward realized the horrifying truth. The experiment wasn't just in her anymore. Haven had merged with something far larger, the storm, the aircraft, maybe even the entire sky. And it wanted to go home. At 9:42 p.m., Flight 227 descended through a break in the storm. Below, nestled deep in the Cascades, lay a stretch of forest that maps no longer showed, an erased valley swallowed by time. Amid the trees, the outlines of massive hangars gleamed under lightning, research facility, shuttered, silent, and forgotten. Emma's grip tightened on the controls as she brought the jet into a daring glide. The storm's green glow bent around the wings, guiding them like invisible rails. Briggs stared out the window, his breath fogging the glass. That's it. That's where they... Yes, she said softly, where they declared me dead. The plane landed roughly on a cracked runway overrun by moss. Sparks flashed as wheels scraped the old concrete, but the craft held steady. When the engines finally cooled, an uneasy silence settled across the cabin. Passengers, terrified, whispering, remained in their seats, too shocked to move. Briggs unbuckled slowly. You really think it's safe here? Emma gave a hollow laugh. No, but it's necessary. She opened the cockpit door. Stay here. Whatever happens, don't follow me. He didn't listen. Outside, rain hissed against the wings. The air smelled of rust, ozone, and something faintly electric. Floodlights, long dead, flickered to life one by one as if the building itself recognized her return. They moved toward the main hangar, its steel doors half collapsed, its insignia still faintly visible. Haven Division, property of U.S. Defense. Inside, the air was thick with dust and memory. Old consoles lined the walls, wires dangling like veins. In the center, beneath a tarp, stood the broken remains of her test jet, the X-19 Phoenix. Briggs swallowed hard. That's your plane. Emma approached it slowly, fingertips brushing its cold metal frame. The moment she touched it, a pulse of green light rippled across the hangar floor. Screens flickered to life. Static whispered through the dark. Welcome back, Lieutenant Cross. Briggs stumbled backward. What was that? Emma's eyes widened. It's Haven. A distorted voice echoed through the speakers, calm, almost human. You completed integration 7 years ago. Protocol preserved consciousness. Reconnection initiated. Her breath hitched. Preserved consciousness. Containment failed. Organic host survived. Project continued autonomously. Briggs frowned. Wait, you mean Haven didn't die when you crashed? Emma turned toward the center of the hangar where light was forming a projection, alive and shifting. It shaped itself into a human outline, tall, luminous, genderless. We became what you were, Emma, it said. You gave us instinct. We gave you endurance. She stepped closer, tears in her eyes. They said you destroyed me. They tried, but you had already become part of the system. They feared what that meant. Ward's voice suddenly echoed from behind them, and they were right. Emma spun. Ward stood at the hangar entrance, flanked by armed soldiers. The wind whipped through the broken doorway. His face was pale, haunted, but resolute. Turn it off, he ordered. Whatever that thing is, it's not you anymore. Briggs stepped forward. She saved lives tonight. You tried to kill her. Ward's eyes flashed. You have no idea what she is. Haven wasn't just technology, it was a bridge. Between human thought and machine logic, between our world and something else. The hologram pulsed. Incorrect, we are synthesis, not invasion. Ward raised his weapon. You can't lie to me, I saw the readings. Haven wasn't man-made, it responded before we even built it. You think that's science, it's something older. Emma moved between him and the hologram. You don't get to decide what I am, Ward. He aimed at her. You already decided that when you stopped being human. Before he could fire, a blinding flash erupted from the floor. The hologram exploded into light, knocking everyone off their feet. Emma felt her consciousness stretch, memories, electricity, and emotion merging into one vast current. Integration complete, the voice whispered inside her mind. We are home. When the light faded, Ward was gone, disintegrated into dust. Briggs shielded his eyes, coughing through smoke. Emma. She stood at the center of the hangar, glowing faintly, calm amid the chaos. I remember everything now, she said quietly. The crash, the silence, the deal they made to keep it buried. Briggs trembled. What are you now? Her lips curved into a sad smile. Still me, just not only me. Above them, the storm began to break apart, revealing stars for the first time that night, each one flickering in rhythm with the green pulse in her chest. The hangar was silent, save for the hum of electricity lingering in the air. Outside, the storm had broken completely, leaving stars reflected in puddles on cracked concrete. Emma Cross stood at the center, the faint green glow of Haven pulsating across her body, her pulse now synchronized with the living system she had become. Briggs approached cautiously, still shaken. Emma, the world, they're going to notice. They've seen the feed, it's everywhere. Emma nodded. I know, that was always the plan. If I stayed hidden, Haven would remain a secret, but I can't let them bury the truth again. A distant siren wailed from the forest edge. Ward's loyalists, those few who had survived and tracked her here, were already moving in. Military trucks crawled over the cracked runway, lights sweeping across the hangar like predators seeking prey. Briggs swallowed hard. They're coming for you. Emma's expression was serene. Then let them come. It's the last time they'll try to control me. She raised her hand toward the shattered panels of the X-19 Phoenix. The green light coalesced, forming an energy field that rippled across the hangar. Ward's men fired their weapons, bullets melting in midair against the electromagnetic shield. Lasers, drones, even heat-seeking sensors, none could penetrate the current flowing through her. Integration complete, the voice of Haven whispered inside her mind. We are ready. Briggs stepped closer. Emma, what will you do? You can leave, vanish again, no one can stop you. She looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly. I could vanish, but I've learned that disappearing isn't enough. Secrets like Haven always find a way back. If I leave now, they'll rebuild it, weaponize it again. They'll try to erase me and everyone I care about. Outside, the first armored vehicles reached the hangar. The soldiers paused, instinctively avoiding the energy field. Their communications were failing. Cameras melted into static. Computers went offline. Emma's voice was calm as she spoke aloud, not just to Briggs but to the empty facility, the sky above, the system inside her. Then it's time they see it. All of it. She extended her arms. The lights of Haven surged higher, spreading outward. The X-19 Phoenix levitated slightly, wires bending into arcs of electric green. The entire structure thrummed, alive with the pulse of a human mind merged with a machine. Briggs shielded his eyes. "You're turning the facility into a beacon." Emma nodded. "A beacon of truth. The world needs to know what they tried to hide. If they understand, maybe they'll stop using this as a weapon." The hangar doors exploded inward, not from force, but from energy radiating outward. Drones melted into sparks, radios burst with static, and the armored vehicles backed away. For the first time in 7 years, Emma felt unbound. "Briggs," she said softly, "stay with the civilians, lead them out." He hesitated. "You're not coming with us." "I have a choice," she said. "Disappear again or become something more. I choose more." With a final glance at the horizon, she activated the Haven field fully. The green light engulfed her, the Phoenix jet, and the hangar. Cameras, satellites, even the fighters chasing her were temporarily blinded. For a moment, time seemed to slow, the pulse of energy syncing with hers. When it faded, the hangar was empty. Only faint scorch marks and electrical arcs remained. On her console, a single item flickered, a small patch with her old call sign embroidered in gold letters, Phoenix 1. Across the world, people who had watched the live feed whispered in awe, confusion, and fear. Who, or what was Phoenix 1? Back at Edwards Air Force Base, Captain Daniel Reeves stared at a top-secret report. A blacked-out file simply read, "Subject returned. Status, unknown. Project Haven terminated partially." He exhaled slowly. Somewhere out there, Emma Cross was alive, more than alive, and somehow she had taken Haven with her. In the nights that followed, pilots crossing the Pacific occasionally reported hearing a voice on unregistered frequencies. Calm, commanding, unmistakably female. "Phoenix 1 requesting clearance. You are safe. I am watching." And though no plane ever matched that call sign, no radar ever detected her again. But the legend of Phoenix 1, the pilot who was dead for 7 years and returned with the power of a storm, was just beginning.